The primary purpose of Innovative AAC Solutions, the podcast, is to educate and inform. The views expressed during all episodes are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute educational or medical advice. They are not necessarily the views of Special School District of St. Louis County. Hey guys, welcome back to Innovative AAC Solutions. Our hosts are here. I'm Laura Hayes.
And I'm Cheryl Livingston.
Welcome back.
Thank
How
you.
you doing? How you doing, Cheryl?
I'm okay. I'm appreciating the fact that spring is coming, so that makes everything better.
Yeah, and we got through spring break. We all came back, I think.
Yeah, in body.
Right? Oh, well, I feel like as we move into this last quarter of the school year, we need a little bit of inspiration. We need a fun find. What do you have for us this week?
Well, I want to bring up something that we all have access to, but I don't know for sure if we've ever kind of put these two things together. So first of all, and I always do this, I blur my thing and then I'm like, can you see what I've got here? I have a dry erase board that's got a glare on it from the Dollar Tree. Okay, so easy find. And I'm sure we have them all around our classrooms. Pretty common thing. Well, what if, and we've talked maybe in the past about, incorporating them into some times that we're with students and having them draw. But what I found on Instagram was taking it to the next level. So I'm going to share my screen. And this is AAC for All on Instagram. If you can see this here. She is using a dry erase board while playing, while engaged with the student. So whatever the student is doing, it became a part of their activity. So if you can kind of see here, we've got Peppa Pig, little figurine. So this would be a younger child, maybe that we're working on some things that Peppa is doing. And looks like they wrote the word jump. They did a hopscotch little drawing here. She's got a core board laying down here. And what they were showing was that no matter what you're working with, could we add to the activity by using colored dry erase markers? Could we be using objects and drawing, putting those two things, combining, writing out the word. I love the literacy part here. And it just becomes that much more interesting, that much more engaging. And you erase it and you go on. It's not a major production. It's not something that, we have to worry about finding paper, finding all the stuff. You just keep a dry erase board with you. You're ready to go. So I was like, again, those are how many times when I'm looking at these kind of things, do I go, duh, I've never thought about that. I never grabbed this to have handy, and now I'm going to. So that's my fun find for today.
Well, and I love the incorporation of so many things here while still being so flexible, right? Because when we think about, if you want to pull it back up, I just wanted to point out a few things for someone who might just be listening to this and not being able to see this visual. So definitely go check out Mary Catherine. She's got such inspiration and she just is an outside of the box thinker. She's great to follow on Instagram. But what I'm thinking about when I look at this is that she does have some 2D symbols here, some objects of Peppa. She's got 3D symbols. So she's got a little swing and a slide play set. Like you mentioned, the hopscotch, that was on the fly, right? Because we do that on the playground. We've got the text itself to talk about actions, jump, eat, drink. We've got some just drawings, even if you're like, I can't draw, it's okay. She just drew a couple squiggly lines.
Like grass to me. I have no qualms about that.
Exactly. And maybe it's drink one day, but then maybe the penguins go swim or play in the water. You could work on prepositions with this too. And then what I also like, if you flip to the next page, is that then that core board is, you can tell it's also laminated, I think, because she has it highlighted with that green dry erase marker to target the word go. So Peppa Pig gets to go on all of these things. So many just very flexible things. Like I'm sure if they, if that core word of the week was feel, you could talk about how we feel when we go on the swing, but maybe we fall down and then we feel hurt. Or maybe someone's a bully. Like there's so many things that then you're mad, right? There's so many things that we can target and still have the flexibility of that board.
And no matter what the students' interests are, I can see, they bring that to you, they bring that to the table, and then you take it from there and incorporate all this together. So yeah,
And I think too, I mean, I don't know what you see when you go out, but when I see people using a dry erase board, I see it being very linear in the way that it's being used. It's either they can use a dry erase board and write down their schedule or write down the expectations in text only. And that is what we use it for. And if otherwise we use symbols. And I think this is, like I said, such a great example of how you can incorporate all of that on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Easy cheat, easy peasy.
How am I going to beat that? Okay.
Good luck.
Not that it's a competition. We want to share all these resources with you guys, but I did find something that I thought was really exciting, partially for personal reasons, because I had not heard of this game yet, and partially because I thought of how exciting and fun it would be for all students to be able to play this game together. So I am going to share my screen and show you this game that I found also on Instagram from We Believe in Darcy. And I can put that that tag in the show notes, but she had shared a while back. She was looking for her son. I'm not exactly sure how old he is, but he is in either early childhood or primary. I think maybe early primary.
Yeah, I'm thinking kindergarten, first grade, something like that.
Yeah. So she was reaching out to just find some age-friendly games that she could kind of add to his system. He uses Proloquo to go. And so on the screen, you can see that we have this folder that she added, and the game is called Please, Mr. Crocodile. Have you heard of it, Cheryl?
No, I don't think so.
I hadn't either. So I screenshotted it and then said, I want to add this because this looks like a really fun game. The premise of it is that it's kind of like Red Rover or What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? I think that's kind of an Australian version of this idea that you stand at one end and they call, like everyone else stands on a line and they call out to you and then you prompt them. So the group of kids stand at one side and then they call out, please, Mr. Crocodile, can we cross the river? If not, why not? What's your favorite color? So the crocodile, whoever has been appointed the crocodile, then says their favorite color of the moment. And any child or individual that's wearing the crocodile's favorite color runs to try to cross the river, and the crocodile chases them with snapping hands.
Okay.
And if they make it, they get to keep playing. But if they get caught, then they get to be the crocodile.
Okay.
So then she adapted this page, this folder, so that Darcy had, please, Mr. Crocodile, can we cross the, if not, why not? What's your favorite color? And then linked the color page with my favorite color is, so that he could be both a participant and he could be the crocodile.
Cool.
What do you think?
So again, it's the flexibility of all kinds of things that we're talking about. I love the fact that the kids standing around, like you're right. Was Red Rover you called a color? Was that a color too?
A name. There's two teams and you call a name. So it's a little bit of combination.
But I love how this, again, it's the flexibility of, whatever, but the kids listening, the ones that are waiting, will have to listen and think, do I have that color or where's, something, so that they're participating with what they're processing, but then also the whole chasing and trying to get each other. So no, that's cute. No, I didn't know that. The only crocodile I know is the one you put your finger in and he comes as a plastic,
Yes, with the teeth.
Isn't it something about
Yeah,
no, that's cute.
So, and again, this is something that I think would be really fun for all students, for anybody wanting to learn a new game, encouraging them to kind of get moving on the playground or recess, or even I could see this if, within reason, like if you want to do this in gym class, or just if you had enough space in like a sensory room to try this out in a small group.
Right.
I just think it would be so motivating. And how cool would it be if whoever is using AAC is the one that's like, yeah, we're going to teach you a new game. Now, some systems do already have, if you have a template, they'll have some games like Simon Says, or just a dice that you can roll. But for the majority of systems, we kind of have to add these, and it shows the power too of pre-stored phrases, right? There's a timing aspect to this game. So it is important. We wouldn't want to just be working on sequencing what is your favorite color? Like we wouldn't want to do that. This would be a really great example of using a pre-stored phrase for timing purposes, but still linking to colors so that we have that flexibility to have flexible language that we can change throughout the activity.
And I guess we could change from if we've kind of gotten used to the color part, maybe that's no longer so much fun. We could change to pieces of clothing. We could change it to shapes on your clothing, like patterns, or I mean, you could expand it to be all kinds of things.
Yeah,
Cool.
how you're feeling, like, or if you could give them all a card with a popsicle stick on it with different vocabulary words, and you just
Right.
sort them out. Like, you can make it anything. You could
Yeah.
even, I'm even thinking if you made it, if you're trying to incorporate it or bring carryover to a lesson plan, like have half of the team be carnivores and half of the team be herbivores. Like you can really just, as long as you're classifying and talking about two different things, like you could give someone an assignment and then they have to identify and express that within the activity.
And again, it's the idea that I like all of our participants to be thinking. It's not a very passive role. It's an active role that they're having to be attending and listening and all those good skills that we work on.
And directing. Like that's my favorite goal to work on, is directing other people, right? Like think about how much control we have if we're the crocodile in this activity. And really, I mean, even too, like if we're not the crocodile, if we're participating, oh my gosh, I have red on, I have to run. Like, yeah, it's cool. Super inclusive. Speaking of inclusive, Cheryl, guess who I brought on
today?
Yes. I am so excited to introduce this interview because when I think of inclusivity with regards to AAC and classroom-based supports, I think of, do you know who I'm thinking of?
I think I have an idea. I think I've heard her speak several times on different presentations.
So yeah, she's here today. We have the wonderful Sarah Gregory here. So without further ado, let's jump in and we can all listen to our interview with Sarah Gregory. So welcome back, guys. We have for our interview today, one of my favorite people to listen to and just get ideas from. Her name is Sarah Gregory. She's amazing. I won't do her justice if I introduce her, so I'm going to let her introduce herself. Sarah, just tell our listeners a little bit about your background, any fun tidbits, and just maybe just your roadmap to AAC. Like I think I know bits of it, but I would love to know the full story.
Thank you so much. And I love talking about my journey to AAC. So that's a good way to start. So currently, I live and work in upstate New York, like central part of the state. We're kind of rural. I work in a public school district. So I am an SLP and I have a small SLP caseload. And then I also cover assistive technology for our district, pre-K through 12. So how I got here is I, of course, graduated from grad school as an SLP, and I really didn't want anything to do with AAC or anything to do with tech at all. I've always said like, oh, I'm really not techie. And in my, I had one week class on AAC and it was pretty much all on low tech. I think they just mentioned like, there's an app called Proloquo, and that was like all we got on high tech. So I definitely didn't come out prepared, and I just was like, that's not going to be where I specialize, and I'm not interested. So great. So then I moved with my husband to Baltimore and had to, get a new job. And where I ended up was a school that almost, I would say like 90% of the students used AAC. And so it was kind of just where I landed in terms of like our location and stuff. And I was so fortunate there that there was 5 SLPs there and the other 4 SLPs had a lot more experience than I did in AAC. And we had, because we were in a city, we had a lot of access to like good trainings and things like that our school sent us to. So I was very, very well supported. So I was really intimidated by it at first. And I definitely like started out with fringe words and heavy prompting and only requesting and all those things that we say not to do now. I have literally done everything that I say not to do. So through that, I really fell in love with it. And I think that's because I had, mentors, and I was in a really supportive environment and a place where I like had access to continuing ed and stuff like that. So then once I moved back here, because we had a kid and we wanted to be close to a family, and I was devastated to think I'm not going to be working with AAC as much, but we found that there's a need here too. So I was able to kind of build up a bit of a program and provide more and more support over a couple of years. And so now we have this position that I do. And And so I still work with AAC, and that's my true love.
A couple of things that kind of jumped out at me are the concept of never say never. I have a very similar story. It's like, I'm never going to work at a school. I didn't want to do AAC either. I wanted to do pediatric rehab. And turns out even then, I wouldn't have gotten away from it. So it's everywhere. It's all the time. Yeah. And you just talking to grad school students the other day, I'm like, never say never. You never know where it could lead. Always keep the door open. So I love that. And I love the idea of mentorship. That's so important. And I think you're not alone. Like, I think that's how we have all learned AAC.
Yeah, because I have not heard of many people who got like really, really robust education in AAC in grad school. And I think that's true for a lot of different niche parts of our profession, is that like postgraduate learning is where you're really going to get comfortable with something. So, I like to think about we work a lot with AAC, but there's other SLPs who don't do it so much, but they're going to have an AAC user on their caseload. And I think sometimes I feel like there's some judgment towards people that don't do things the same way we do, or maybe do things the way that I was doing them my first year. And so I try to think a lot about how to help people like get that entry point of like, you don't have to specialize in AAC to support AAC, because it really is just language therapy, even though it feels so much different and it feels more intimidating than that, because there's like a piece of equipment between you and your student. But I think we don't have to be experts to support it. And for sure, the mentor piece and just finding somebody that can answer questions, which I know you do a lot on social media too, of helping people out with like questions here and there, which is awesome. That's the thing I love about social media, is like being able to connect with other people like you and other SLPs that continually help me even now.
Yeah, ditto. And, we know that AAC users, no two are alike. No two students we support are alike, but, that's where the personalization of social media and asking those questions and saying, hey, what would you do here? I think that's so great. The other thing that I'm just curious, if you could go back and talk to yourself when you were first starting out, because I have a very similar experience of, oh my gosh, I still remember that first AAC user I had, and working on identifying, well, we'll say labeling to be generous, but I was really identifying colors with him and matching colors. And I just shake my head and say, oh, good gravy, Laura, what were you thinking? So what would you say to yourself? Would you say those words of it's just language therapy? And what else would you say?
Yes. Well, I don't know. So before I moved to Baltimore, I had one student who used AAC that I saw for maybe 4 weeks over the summer. And I think about this and I feel so horrible, because I did not serve this student well. I was so scared of his device. And he also had a goal for like articulation and like working on bilabial sounds. And I was like, well, I'll just do artic. And like, I did not support language or communication with this student at all. So I think, and it was harder too, I'm talking about, this was like 10 or so years ago, that at least I wasn't as connected on social media. So to find somebody, and like I said, I'm in a rural area, I didn't really know how to seek out mentorship. So that was hard. I think now it's a little bit easier. So I would certainly like encourage myself to try to find somebody to connect with, but also to think about the language and communication piece of like, what do other 7-year-olds talk about and what gives them communicative power, and how do we give that to this student beyond just like bilabial sounds?
Yes, absolutely. Oh gosh. Did you ever wonder about your kiddos from way back when? Like, what are they doing now?
I know. I hope he found a better SLP eventually.
Well, you mentioned, so I want to dive in a little bit, because today we want to talk about inclusion in AAC, and you mentioned social media, and you mentioned just sharing resources. So I know that is something you have been sharing recently and feel very passionate about. So let's dive in. When we say inclusion in AAC, what does that really mean? What do you think people think it means, and what does it actually mean?
That is a great question. And I also say, although I, present a lot on this topic of AAC and inclusion, and I've started to do this series of posts on my Instagram about it, I am not an expert, and I'm not like standing before you saying this is the way you do it. It's really just me being like, this is something I thought of. It's something I tried. This worked. This didn't work, because there's not a lot of like great resources or roadmaps towards inclusion for students with complex needs, whether or not they use AAC. When I first started out kind of on this journey in my district, we have a big goal of including all students in their neighborhood schools, in their gen ed classrooms. And so I was like, sure, I'll do it. Like, buy me the book. And I'm on board. But there, like I said, there's no roadmap. So it's just been a lot of trial and error. But really, I think sometimes when we talk about inclusion, we're thinking about a room, like that gen ed classroom. And if we have a student in that room, then like, look, we're doing inclusion. But that's really not it. Like, how many times have you probably gone to do a consult, and before you even see the device, you know what student you're there for, because they're sitting by themselves in the back of the room at a table with an adult. And it's like, okay, that must be my kid that I'm here to observe. And so to me, that's not inclusion. That's what Shelley Moore would call integration, which is the first step. And that's great. So if you're listening and you think, oh my gosh, I have so many students like that, that's great. They're in the classroom. They do have to physically be there, but it's not just about that physical proximity to other people. It's about having meaningful engagement with both academics and the social pieces of the classroom. So when I think about inclusion, it really is about changing the environment and making the environment and the academic content something that all students can access. Because I really think that when we design our classrooms to accommodate the student with the most significant or complex needs, we make the classroom better for all students. Like, none of the other students are going to suffer by us making our classrooms more accommodating. And that's, why I continue to struggle along this path to figure out how we can really make it work.
Yeah, once you see it, it's I think it's Germany that has the museum with the ramp where it's fully accessible. I can't remember the name of it, but you're like, once you see it, you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. And it's accessible for everyone versus just adding a wheelchair ramp, so that the person that is in a wheelchair can access it. Really using that approach of, we're going to make it accessible for all. How do we do that? That is the ultimate question. And Shelley Moore, that is she has that resource with the colored dots, correct?
Yes.
With the circles. Yeah. So we can put that in the show notes too, because I think that's a great graphic to show the differences between things like integration and inclusion and all of that. So, yeah. So you walk into a room and you see your student and they're off to the corner with their support staff. What are your first steps? What does that look like? And where do you go from there?
So there's kind of this ideal vision of like what we want, universal design to be across the whole school day and every special. And we want the student to be meaningfully participating in every moment. But we have to get there somewhere. So I have also learned the hard way a lot of coaching strategies, where I used to kind of come in to coaching situations and have my idea in mind and be like, well, how can I convince everybody to do this? And I've realized that that's not how we get success. That's not the best way to support students, because everybody on the team is going to have good ideas and different perspectives. And I also found starting small and starting easy. So thinking about what's the best time of day that you think we could start redesigning what the classroom looks like to make it easier for this student to be a part of it. Is it going to be circle time? Is it even going to be a meal time where we just look at them meaningfully participating in conversation? And also another thing that I found really effective is if we can solve a real problem for a teacher, if they are saying oh, the student is so disruptive during math, he's just using his device and over again saying, I want chips or something like that. And if that's something that they want solved, then we can say, oh, great. Yeah, let's look at that. So I wonder why he's not engaging with the math. Is it accessible to him? What's happening in the room? Is it loud? And if we can problem solve things like that, then we can hopefully look at a lesson that the student is going to really be able to access, or look at changing the environment. Maybe it needs to be quieter or small groups or something like that. And then we might see a decrease of, the behavior that they don't want to see. Which if we can solve a real problem, but then also work towards our goals for inclusion, then I think it's easier to get buy-in.
Yeah. And one of the takeaways I have from just your coaching suggestions is the same kind of recommendations you had from the SLP Happy Hour podcast that you recently did, which is just this idea of that it's okay to be wrong and acknowledging that we don't want an expert model or like, this is how it should be and this will work, because we can be wrong, but then the staff also recognize that they can be wrong. And it's this idea of failure-free collaboration where we're just going to try it and we're going to see, like you said, does it solve a real problem? And then how can we slowly shape that or shift that and pivot as we need to gradually take those steps. Okay.
Yeah, another tip for collaboration that I heard recently was saying like, I'm open to being proven wrong. And so I kind of like that, where sometimes if I know, like I have an idea of like, I really want the student to be in math class and the teacher's like, I just want them pulled out because I feel like it's disruptive. I might present my idea and just say, I'm open to being proven wrong. So like, I really want to hear what you have to say. But also that kind of indicates that we're going to be having a discussion and collaboration and coming to kind of like a joint agreement on things.
Yeah. And I just heard too, like, let's take data your way and let's take data trying this way and we can see, because it's hard to, the numbers usually give a picture, right? Even if it's not like accuracy, we can see a trend one way or the other. Okay. So I love your examples. I love the idea of those positive supports and that mindset shift. What do you think are the challenges or potential pitfalls that a team could run into or that you've seen when it comes to inclusion in AAC?
So I definitely see that the older students get, the harder it gets. It really does. Like when we're in pre-K and everything's really play-based, and we like can bring in extra iPads, and there's like lots of times during the day when other students can use AAC, and it feels like very inclusive and it feels like everybody's kind of doing the same things. And then as our students get older and older and things get much more focused on academics, I think it gets harder. And again, I look at the environment, like if it's hard for our students who are using AAC, it's probably pretty hard for the other students too. Like sitting, being quiet, like doing worksheets. Is that what's best for everyone? So that's, again, why I really, really believe in inclusion, because when we say we really need to look at this specific student and how they are going to interact with this math curriculum. And when we make changes, we're saying like, well, let's be in small groups where talking is encouraged and students can help each other. And we're not saying, stop saying that on your device. It's welcome to say whatever you want because we're having a conversation rather than just being lectured at. And I think that really can make teaching and learning better for everybody. But I definitely see more pushback as as academics get more complex, and it's hard for people who have been doing things one way for a long time to shift out of that mindset. So, if we could just like completely rearrange the whole education system, that's the way we need to go.
Yes, I just, Chris Bouguet just had a great presentation over for Patton, and we were talking about that exact thing, where as you get older, the idea of school shifts on that scale of like, I really don't like that. That's right up there with like being sick and having to get up early. Like it is not something that we like. And even how many presentations and sessions do we go to where if they read off their slides or if they're monotone, like all of those things, and you're just like, oh, I probably could have synthesized this and gotten this just way better if it was more interactive. And like you mentioned, just small groups, having the chance to talk about it, use real life examples and just apply it. So I think there are many, and then, right, you think about, oh, I really like that presenter because they are so interactive. Same with teachers. So yeah, let's just throw it on its head. Let's just shift all of education. Let's take away the bubble standardized tests and let's just No pressure. We'll just figure out a way to do it. No biggie. So if we were trying to make headway, is it just solving some real problems? Is that the first step? Are there other things that we can do in real time, knowing that teachers and everyone have more obligations than they've ever had, and we are trying to adapt supports for students that need it? What else? What can we do?
So I again, think about starting small and making it easier for the teachers. Again, back to kind of your previous question about where I get pushback. I hear a lot once we get in middle school, like, oh, well, we can't even use this device in social studies because this device doesn't have like pyramid and Mayans and things like that on it.
All that tier 3 vocabulary. Yep.
Yes. So that's what I have, done most of my a few posts on Instagram about vocabulary, because I do think the descriptive teaching model is one shift that we can make that really like opens up opportunities for students who use AAC to be participating. So the descriptive teaching model is using more tier 1 vocabulary words to describe more academic terms. So if we want to talk about like Mayan ruins, we can say, oh, this is a place where people live. It's broken because it's old. Like we can describe the concepts. We of course want our students to have a receptive understanding of these concepts, just as their peers would. We can work on literacy skills by spelling words out on their device that we want them to have, that aren't programmed into their device, but using words, descriptive words, can help our students have an opportunity to interact. And also, I'm going to keep coming back to this because inclusion is not just about the student with the IEP. It's really about how do we make classrooms accessible and better for everybody. And so when we talk about the descriptive teaching model, if we give students a quiz and it's just like name, the year that the Mayan Empire fell or something like that, that's something you can memorize and forget the next day. We're not really like synthesizing knowledge. If we're actually like, can you tell me a reason why they built the roads the way that they did? Then we can use core vocabulary to answer those questions. And it actually takes a deeper understanding to answer the questions, rather than just that like memorization, like fill out a Scantron and forget it the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're having those small groups too, I love the idea that you're having like opportunities for very functional communication. So you're having social exchanges, you're working on commenting, you're working on initiating, which we know our AAC users are at a disadvantage of because so many times they're prompt dependent or partner dependent, and they are not given that opportunity to initiate. So yeah.
I have one more thing to say about this, because this is my next Instagram post in the series. I'm just trying to find time to make it in Canva, but it is that idea of more student talk time, less teacher talk time, and making small groups. And I learned this in like a presentation in my district years ago, that it was just like a gen ed kind of like presentation. And they said that a lot of times what our classrooms look like is 90% is teacher talking, 10% is children talking, and it should really be flipped. And I've noticed by doing push-in sessions in middle school that I want to be modeling on the device. I want to be modeling using the descriptive teaching model. And I feel very disruptive because the teacher is just talking and I'm like, okay, but instead of saying percent, we can also, but when you put kids in small group and conversation is welcome and confusion is welcome and helping each other, it just makes it easier for everybody to participate communicatively in their own way, whatever that may be.
Yeah, love that. So less sit and get and more interaction, if at all possible. Big takeaway. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for that post, Sarah. So, going back to some threats and things that have been challenges in regards to inclusion in AAC. One that I know you have shared many tips and ideas is after COVID came to see us all, it has been hard because we had telepractice, teletherapy, and we had to kind of turn on a dime and say, now we're going to be teaching virtually. So any thoughts on that? Any strategies? And any strategies that would still work today as we start to move back in person?
Sure. So my therapy like completely changed in COVID. As we know, I was like, as I said, I got familiar with AAC, but I still wouldn't consider myself a tech person. And then here I am like, how do you open up a Google slide and a PowerPoint and animate and do all these things that I learned? And now I think tech is more of a hobby of mine now. But what I think that did in terms of like our therapy is giving access to really flexible, really personalized, motivating activities that are free or low cost. Like I make everything in Google Slides. I'm shifting a little bit to making things in Canva. I just presented at ATIA with Lauren Enders on Canva, which is, we were calling the session open-ended graphic design tools. So anything that our students are interested in, we can Google image search and pull it into Canva, where I use this example a lot this year because it's unique, but one of my students stims on the phrase dog poop bag. And so he says a lot in class. And so I'm like, sure, you want to talk about that? I can't like go to Target and buy a game or a book, or like, how would I really honor that interest? But I can Google image search, and we like wrote a book about it, and he like gets a kick out of it. We put images into Canva, and it definitely makes things more engaging. So I like in my office, I have very few physical materials because I really do a ton still on my computer, just really to capitalize on student interests, and it's affordable.
Affordable, and you don't have a bunch of clutter. My husband would appreciate that.
Exactly.
No clutter. And I am so bummed that I missed your guys' session. I saw the slides and it just made me yearn to be there even more. I had total FOMO, specifically with your session. But one of my takeaways, especially after hearing Chris and Rachel talk about it on the Talking with Tech, I think it's the episode with, I think it's the key takeaway points from ATIA. I think it's the most recent one, but one of my ahas was just the idea. You guys had talked a lot in detail. We do graphics and we use Canva for education and we're creating materials, but you guys really talked about engaging and incorporating your students in the design of those materials, have them be an active participant. Wouldn't that be a great opportunity to include all the students so they all have a seat at the table to make those same things that you're using with your students that have an IEP?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things that I've kind of like aha moments, because I am not planful. I am not type A. I like walk into my office and I just look around and I'm like, what's the first thing I see? And that's what I'm going to take. I don't do themes or anything like that. So now I can have an idea and then I just go sit down in my session and open up the computer and I'm like, listen, I got an idea from, I'm thinking it's an SLP on Instagram. I think the handle is like ABA Speech with Rose or something like that. And she gave away a freebie that was a would you rather game. And so she just had like 2 pictures and it was like a snow day theme. Would you rather have a snow day or be in school? So now we make our own would you rathers, and maybe I'll give an idea like, let's do like a food one. And then my students will pick 2 foods, or let's do like something that's really hard or that you don't like, and we'll do 2 would you rathers. And I do it in Canva. We do the image search, we can pick a font, and it's just super simple. And I don't plan. I just think of it in the shower or in the car, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do today.
I love that. And I love just talking to you because I'm sitting here collaborating and thinking, okay, that's great, because then not only have you built it together, you built some foundation, but how cool would it be if that student that has AAC then gets to carry it over and start polling people like, would you rather? Like, here's what I've created. Would you rather? I'm initiating all of that, and I have buy-in because I made it myself.
Yeah. Yep. It's super fun. And also another idea I got from you was I do a lot of like writing books and things like that about students' favorite characters and put people in funny scenarios and pull in characters from 2 different shows. And I saw that you had posted one of your Target hauls, and there's those little paper book, like blank paper books. So I have printed out books that we've written and then just like taped them in the book. So it's like, it has like a real cover and it feels like a real book, and you can hold it and flip through the pages if you're like, even if my students were at emergent literacy levels. And so that's been pretty cool because I love the flexibility of the computer, but I also recognize like we're on tech a lot and we don't, having physical materials is also important. So that's been a cool thing where I've combined kind of the digital experience with then having something physical.
It's just so personal too. They have a product to take home that is theirs. We talk about writing, and kids take home writing examples, or emergent writers take home scribbles and drawings. And we need our students that are emergent writers to have those same opportunities. So yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you released that. I would love to see an example if it doesn't have student info in it. Okay. So we talked a little bit how COVID and telepractice has changed things. We talked about how we can use Google. Are there any other carryover or learning opportunities that you have tried in the past or have thought about trying related to inclusion in AAC?
So in terms of carryover, I have actually been able to do a lot more with my teletherapy skills, because we got so comfortable communicating with parents that way, like emails. And once I wrote a book in Google Slides, it's very easy to just share that home. So now I have much more tech comfort, and I will do more videos. So here's a fun tip that came up in our session at ATIA is that Alyssa Wern, who's an OT, that she specializes in AAC. So she gave us the tip in our session because we tried to make it interactive and fun. And so we welcomed audience participation and in Canva. So we were showing people how to make things in Canva, and we were talking about, I think, sending things home. And Alyssa said that you can record yourself in Canva. So you can be making a scene with a student and turn on the record button and just do your session. Okay, where should we put this? And, they say something on their device, and then you could, record a short part of it, and then you can send that home. So I think, again, in thinking about getting started with AAC, I just was I can't even picture, how do you model? What words would you model? And it can be hard to translate that to parents too, of what do you do? What does it look like? And so I think video can be really helpful. And so I've taken videos on my phone in sessions and things like that, but I thought that was a really cool idea to be showing an activity, exactly what words you're using, just showing what prompting you're doing, and, keeping in mind that it's a video. You could always say a couple of notes to the parents, oh, I'm pointing my finger, but I'm not touching anything or something. And sending that home, which I think can be really helpful for carryover. And also, like you said, I got this point from Lauren Enders in a session a couple of years ago where she talked about all the products that typically come home from school, the crafts and the writing samples and things like that, where a lot of times students with complex needs aren't making those same products and getting them sent home. So just to be mindful of it might look different, and that's okay. And also, if we're going to make the assignment look a little bit different for this student, then how can we give flexibility to everybody? And if you'd rather make a video than cut and paste this, then great, you can make a video and we'll send it home to your mom.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of Chris's points in there was you have a real world problem to solve in his presentation, and then the students get to design however they want to solve that problem. So is it a poster presentation? Is it a video? Is it a pamphlet? They all have that option. And again, the AAC user has that flexibility to slide right in. So I love that. One of the questions that popped up in my brain while we were talking is a real world problem that we have, or I have, selfishly, is just trying to help teams understand that when we are doing inclusion, it really, that communication partner, it's not about what they want the student to say. It's about what the student, that intrinsic, what would they be saying in the moment. And so it's constantly, you're trying to be well, and even signing their name, right? How can we adapt it so they can sign their name, even if it's not perfect, even if we're off topic, like you said, dog poop bag. That's how can we incorporate those responses and not be perfect or accurate or right. And really, because what we're doing there is we're supporting and we're honoring what the communication partner is saying and thinking, and not what the AAC user is. So tips.
Yes. So one thing, I do try to do a lot of my therapy in the classroom, and as much like AAC coaching as I've done and as many books as I've read about it, it's still, I can be uncomfortable telling people, like, don't do it that way, do it my way. So something that works well for me is just to model, like when a student is saying something that is seemingly off topic, that I'll just respond and I'll say, oh, do you think that I don't know, the way we grow plants in water has to do with zebras? I don't know, like, tell me more about that, about how those two things are connected or something like that. And I will also like answer students out loud, depending on the class, so that the class really has to stop and listen. And I will model explicitly, like, take your time. We really want to hear what you have to say. And that I actually have seen some shifts of, it doesn't always have to be this like sit down conversation of like, listen, I feel like you're, overlooking him when he's saying things that you don't feel are related to the class. But just being able to model those things and to say to students, like, we really care about what you have to say, and to shift that mindset. I'm going to go on a little tangent here, but like you said, we want students to be able to respond in the way that they want to respond, that's comfortable for them. And if we're going around in a circle and everybody said, like, say your name, if you don't say your name, like, that's your choice because it's your voice. And I went to ASHA this year also and went to a presentation by Eric Raj, who does a lot of work in fluency. I don't have any fluency clients. I, went because it was on gaming. It sounded interesting. And something he talked about with his fluency clients was to tell them, we care about what you have to say and we will wait for you. And your thoughts and ideas are important. And so I don't rush on my account. I take as much time as you need. Because you can think about the stress and tension that comes with that when we're looking at supporting fluency. And I really have translated that to AAC because sometimes it takes our students longer to compose a message on their device as it would for our students who are speaking. And so that's something, I've talked to teachers about too, and just said, like, think, how can we show them that we value their voice? And trying to rush them through things or making everything have to be pre-programmed so we don't waste our class time, that's not showing somebody that they're a valued member of our classroom.
That's so good. I got goosebumps. And really it comes down to connection over compliance, right? I mean, it's a big push right now, and we know that there's value in that. And just that idea of feeling acknowledged, and your voice is acknowledged. And that is I don't know what the research is on it, but that is my number one principle when I'm doing any kind of therapy and support, is not just with students, but with staff too. I want you to feel acknowledged. I want you to understand that I'm acknowledging your thoughts, your values, and your communication. Same for our students with AAC.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay. We could talk all day. We're both SLPs, but we always end with wrapping up with the story or thought you have about something in your past, whether it be with a student or a client or a presentation or something, with your favorite AAC moment. I know.
Oh my goodness. What would my favorite AAC moment be? Oh gosh, it's interesting to think about, because sometimes the progress that we make with students who have complex communication needs or are emergent communicators, it feels very slow and steady. Okay, I have a good one. So speaking of slow and steady, this was a student I had last year who was a pre-K age student. He had been using high-tech AAC for maybe 2 years. Well, I say using, I had been modeling it for 2 years, and he really wasn't engaging with it very much. He is busy. He didn't seem super interested when I walked into the room, and that's okay. And my focus was AAC, how can I support this? How can I get him engaged in this and interested? And something that was really, really made a big impact and change in my practice was a Talking with Tech episode where Chris Bugay talked with Kathy Howry, and they talked about client engagement and how we can model all day long, but if we don't have a connection or engagement with our students, it's not really going to matter. And so I thought about this student and I was like, man, I sit here with him at breakfast and I just am yum, yuck, different foods. I like this. What do you like? What do you want to do? Modeling all these things that he would look at But I realized in terms of our personal connection together, it wasn't really there. And so I just said to myself, I'm forgetting the AAC device. It's okay if it sits there. I might model some things, but I'm only going to work on my relationship with the student and the connection. So I did more of just like sitting back and observing, what is he like? What is he into? I like reached back out to his parents. I was in close communication with them, but I was like, all right, what is he really into these days? And one thing they said was like songs that involve your fingers, so like open, shut them and things like that. I'm like, great. So we didn't even use AAC. We just sang songs. We did some more sign language. And he started, like, if I was in the room for another student, he would come sit on my lap. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm changing my relationship with this student because I'm not like focused on the device. I'm actually focused on the person. And so then once I did start to reintroduce modeling, he paid more attention. He started touching the device. Like it was a huge breakthrough. And it was because I was just too like in my mind of like the AAC part and like those data points of like, how can I get him to learn these core words rather than like, how can I get him to be willing to learn from me? And that's on us to create that environment. And so anyways, that's
Oh, that's so good.
shift story.
That's so amazing. And it brings us back to the connection piece. I have told many people through, I have a sister with a disability, and I can tell you that she is on point with anybody that she interacts with, from staff to family to extended people. She knows when they are going to acknowledge her and build that connection piece first. So the same rules apply with all of our students. They know if you're just there to be there. They know if you're trying and you're trying to connect with them on a personal and a supportive level. So always starting there, just take away all the bells and the whistles and get down to the nitty gritty, which is not take care of, but to truly connect with.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're just going to have to end on that. I haven't cried. Sometimes I cry on the AAC moments because they're really emotional, but I love that piece. I just want to thank you for coming on today. If someone has a question or wants to reach out or wants to get onto your Instagram to follow you for all these great ideas you're about to share, what is the best way to do that?
So everything is Sarah Gregory SLP. So that's my Instagram, my Twitter. You can find me on TikTok. I haven't made a TikTok in a while, but my email is sarahgregoryslp@gmail.com. So I'm more than happy to chat with anybody, answer questions, or brainstorm things.
Perfect. So for Innovative AAC Solutions, we just want to thank Sarah, and we hope you guys have a great day.
Hi guys, it's Cheryl. Wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about if you have an opportunity to capture something that's in the text box on these, I'm going to look at 4 different apps, how you can then save it to a cell or a section of the app so that maybe it's something novel that the student just generated and you're excited, you want to save it so they can share that with somebody else, show them when they get home what they said. It's like as if they wrote something down. You've said it, you've captured it, you've recorded it. So now we want to make sure it has a home that it can be used again. Or maybe it's something that they say quite often and we want to capture their single words and put them into a phrase. So right now I'm looking at Touch Chat with Word Power. This is the 60 basic. And let's say we put together, how about
take me with you.
Okay, so they've said, take me with you.
Take me with you.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold the text box, and it says, well, what do you want to do? And I say, well, I want to copy that. So for this particular app, I can go to Groups. I can go to Stories and Scripts. I have Stories and Save Phrases 1. And then there's a purple box on the left-hand side that says Save Message. I press that. And then it says Store Text to Button. And I say, sure, continue. And then I tell it, just press which button I want. And there it is. Take me with you. So now we're going to say, okay, we're done with that. We're going to erase up here in the text box. Day goes on. We come back later. We go to Groups. We go to Stories and Scripts. We go to Stories and Save Phrases.
Take me with you.
And there it is. We can add symbol support to that as well, but that's the actual text that was generated now in a cell. Well, now let's say we're going to save it on a button. We could do that also. So I'm going to go to social. Okay. And I'm going to say menu, edit page, hit a blank key, edit this button. And now again, if I hold down the button label box there, I just pressed it and held it for a second, I hit paste, and it still remembered that that was the phrase we captured. Take me with you. I hit save. I hit done.
Take me with you.
All right, so it's all contained in one button. So that's Touch Chat with Word Power. Let's now go to Proloquo to go. So right now, what I'm looking at is I'm going to generate something new. And let's say I'm going to say, how about
Go. In.
let's go in the
Restaurant.
Okay, you can tell I'm getting hungry. So this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the bottom of the screen, and there's 4 little cells kind of real close together at the bottom left-hand corner. I press that, and I have the option of copy. Okay, and now I'm going to say, well, where do I want to put this? I've copied it. Now what? So I'm going to go back to the home screen, and I'm going to go to chat, and I'm going to hit the pencil at the bottom. And it says, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm going to hit the plus sign because I just want one cell. I don't need a whole folder. And now right above the top row of the keyboard, you see there's like a little black piece of paper and a white piece of paper. If I press that, that's your paste. And now it says go in restaurant. All right, so I've said, okay, that's good. It automatically gave me the go icon with that. So I say done on the keyboard. I say done at the top. And I say, yes, I'm having a good experience. And now we have, not now.
Go in restaurant.
Okay, so it put it all together as one. So that now is on our chat page.
Go in restaurant.
Okay, so now if I go to another app, and let's say we're going to do TD Snap, same idea, of course, different steps. Each of these apps is independent of each other, so they do things a little differently. So let's say this time I'm going to say, and my app's not talking, but I'm going to say, tell me when, let's say, we go. Okay, tell me when we go. I guess I'm still thinking about going to that restaurant. So I have the message over in the far right-hand corner, across from the text box here. There's a button that says share. But first, I'm going to maneuver the system to where I'm going to put it. Okay, so it's going to leave it in the text box. I'm going to go to personal, just so I know I have some blank cells here. Now I hit share, and it says, well, what do you want to do? So I'm going to tell it I want to copy what's in the text box to a button. And it says, well, you sure you want to? Share is green and cancel is red. I hit share, and then it says select the button to receive the text, and there it is. So now if I say accept, so now on my main list personal page, I should clear here for a second. Tell me when we go, okay? So that's how we would do it in TD Snap. One more, let's do lamp. Clear out what I've said before. And let's say I'm going to put in
He.
Let's do he said.
You are
You are going, okay? Again, we're all going to the restaurant evidently. Same kind of like we did with Touch Chat. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to copy it. All right. Now, again, where do I want to put it? So just for the sake of some, just an example here, I'm going to hit talk, and then I'm going to hit menu and say I'm going to edit this page, and I'm going to pick a blank cell. Blank cell, create new button. And now again, if I hold the button label, just press that white box there, the paste button pops up, and he said, And again, now it's printed out here. He said, you are going. I hit save. And again, I could add a symbol to that. If I hit done.
He said you are going.
Okay. And again, so if we go back just to see that again, talk.
He said you are going.
All righty. So let us know if you have questions about that. But what we wanted to make sure you knew was that things that are in the text box can be captured, copied, and then put into different places on the app that you might find helpful. I hope that is help. And again, let us know if you have questions.
Hey guys, and welcome back for our innovative activity this week. This week, I'm really excited to talk about this because we've been talking about inclusion. And when we think about inclusion, we think of all different areas of academics. We think of math, we think of science, we think of social studies. And so the resource that I want to highlight today are these really cool can-do kits from Lakeshore Learning. So this one that I have here is the science kit, or is a science kit, and it's specifically on magnification. This is so exciting because it not only has some instructions on targets of what we can do, such as making observations, recognizing characteristics, using tools, and identifying body parts, but it also has the materials that go along with it. So we've got some objects like a pine cone, a little flower that's been encased, some cocoons. How much fun is that to talk about, especially if we were going to pair it with some Eric Carle in The Hungry Caterpillar, a little encased leaf, a little bumblebee eraser, a measuring tool, talking about numbers and sizes, the picture cards, and a penny. So it also comes with this little bowl, if you will. So you can put the objects in the bowl and then use your handy dandy magnifying glass to investigate. Then we can use descriptive teaching like big, little, hard, soft. We can do all these things to make good observations about these objects in our science experiment. We can talk about change. We can talk about making things. We can talk about what they look like, what we see. And we can also use some phrase-based language if we're using a phrase-based system. So I see it. What's that? It's big, it's small, commenting about it. I like it, I don't like it, it's hard, it's soft. These things are equally of value when we're looking at our lesson plan. So this is just one example. As I mentioned, they have all different activities for all different inclusive lesson planning. So they have a social studies one, there's a mathematics one. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to adapt for those other applicable things. We could talk about math. We could talk about measurement. There's lots of carryover opportunities here, and it's hands-on and it's pretty fun. We could carry this over to other objects, right? If there's some preferred things that we like to talk about, whether it be little SpongeBob pictures or Oreos or something along those lines, we can add that to using a magnifying glass and talk about those same characteristics and learning objectives. So can do science or can do kits, Lakeshore Learning, come check it out.
Oh, Laura, that was good. I have always loved listening to Sarah, but today I felt like she was talking directly at me. So much of that I need to share. We are sharing our podcast, but I need to be the first person telling my teams, hey, think about this, because I don't see us doing it. I wish it were an automatic, but it's not. We have to put some planning into it. And I love how like everything you guys were saying about, if we change it for one kid, we've only made it better for everybody else. And we have a tendency to not, I think in those terms. So that was really cool. And Sarah has done great work on all kinds of things. We talk about the pandemic being, it was a life changer for all of us, but Sarah rose to the occasion. She has been presenting all kinds of information about doing virtual therapy and doing all these different tools that she's incorporated. So I really, really enjoyed that. Thank you for setting that up.
We're so lucky to have her. I love the fact too that when she thinks about it, she does think about those universals and then thinking about making it fit and like like going with the flow instead of going against the grain and just sometimes keeping it simple and like trying to figure out a way to incorporate what's already going on is the easiest solution because otherwise it just feels too daunting. One more thing that we already have to do, like how can we really meet them where they're at and support them, because in the long run it's going to benefit all of us.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's something that I know we know, but I don't know if we've actually seen it come together the way I'd like to see it come together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times I think about it in silos, and as much as we try to team, as much as we try to collaborate, we still have these silos where we're working on one thing here and one thing on here, and okay, now math time is over and now we're going into social studies. But communication, right? It's that functional base
Pulls it all together.
foundation, yeah, that we need across all activities in life. So how can we do a better job of incorporating that? And I think she gave some really great strategies that we can build on.
And the other, as far as, the kids on our caseload, we definitely have a sensitivity to what's going on with them. But as a mom of a student who struggled in school, I think he would have enjoyed school more if he could have had some of that flexibility. And so I think this applies to every student out there. Some kids will do it the way it was planned on the lesson plan. Other kids need to look at it differently, and then they'll be motivated to learn and participate instead of just shutting down, which is what a lot of kids do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hope that this has been an episode that you feel like you have benefited from, giving you some new ideas, and feel free to share it. If you have a teacher you're working with, if you have a staff that hasn't listened yet, and you're like, oh, this is the episode for you, share away, because that is our goal. Is we want that carryover, we want that buy-in, we want to make it less work for you in the long run. So with that, we will bid adieu until next time. I'm Laura Hayes.
And I'm Cheryl Livingston.
See you later.
Bye.